Biblically Centered Kids.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. Today is March 15th, 2024, and I am your host for today's episode, Mr. Johnny. I hope your week is going well so far. We have had a blessed and fun-filled week in my house. We actually just had our fourth baby just a few days ago. So we are truly enjoying and over the moon for our sweet new addition to our family. Miss Danika, as you know, is my wife and such a great mother to our children. So we are so very thankful in our house this week. We have a fun couple of national holidays we're going to talk about today. Our first one is National Preschool Teachers Appreciation Day. That's today. And that's a pretty fun one. If any of you listening have any preschool teachers in your life that you love and appreciate, today would be a great day to send them a kind message or a card just to let them know how much they mean to you. Another fun one is today is actually National Dumbstruck Day. Huh? Have you ever heard that word before? Dumbstruck? It's a word to describe a feeling of amazement or surprise that causes you to go silent for a very short period of time. It oftentimes happens when you're very surprised, or maybe you hear a random surprising fact or a piece of trivia that you might find particularly interesting. It can actually cause a brief lapse where you go silent just for a few seconds or even longer before you can talk again. It's almost like you can feel your brain processing the information. So in honor of this very random but also very fun holiday, I'm going to share a few useless but fun facts for you and see if any of these cause you to feel dumbstruck. Did you know our eyes are always the same size from birth, but our nose and ears never stop growing? Did you know a snail can sleep for 3 years? Tigers have striped skin, not just striped fur. Hummingbirds are the only animals that can fly backwards. That's interesting. Ooh, how about this one? Did you know butterflies can taste with their feet?
Yummy!
Did you know that there are more chickens than people in the world? That probably explains why the old Chick-fil-A is able to stay in business for as long as they have. Here's an interesting one. The name Wendy. Okay, so do you know anyone named Wendy? That name was made up for the book Peter Pan. Before that book, there was never a recorded Wendy.
Whoa!
Isn't that interesting? Okay, last one. The flea, you know, the little teeny tiny bug, the flea, can jump 350 times its body length. That'd be like a human jumping the length of an entire football field. Well, how do you feel? Did any of those random facts leave you a little speechless? Well, I hope not, because now it's time for us to move into our Quiz Day Friday. Are y'all ready for today's quiz? I'll be asking a series of multiple choice questions, some easy, some a little difficult, but they all require us to listen well. Are you ready to listen and answer? If you know the right answer, just shout it out. All right, here we go with question number 1. This week, we're talking all about Virtue K. But what does Virtue K say? Is it A, we keep all of our toys to ourselves? B, we kiss our mom and dad every night before bed? C, we kindly respond with gentleness and encourage others? Or D, we kindly do all of our chores with a happy heart? Well, D certainly is a good quality to have, right? We always want to do what our parents ask of us with a happy heart, but the answer for virtue K is C. We kindly respond with gentleness and encourage others. All right, question 2. This one might be a little hard, but we did mention this verse earlier this week. Okay, so as we talk about kindness, we've discussed that kindness is a fruit of the Spirit. So where in the Bible does it talk about fruits of the Spirit? Is it A, Galatians 5, B, Ephesians 6, C, Proverbs 7, or D, Ecclesiastes 8? This one's a little tricky, isn't it? Do you remember us talking about this verse earlier this week? It takes place in A, Galatians 5, specifically verses 22 and 23, which say, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." It might be a fun task for you to try to memorize that verse this week. All right, question 3. In our Old Testament story this week, we discussed Saul, David, and Jonathan. In the story, we learn a little about Jonathan's son, who has a pretty interesting name. Do you remember his name? Was it A, Absalom, B, Lazarus, C, Alphaeus, or D, Mephibosheth? Do you remember? Are any of these names ringing a bell from our Old Testament story this week? It was Mephibosheth, which I actually have a little bit of a hard time pronouncing. What about you? Here, try saying it with me. Are you ready? Me-fib-o-sheth. Mephibosheth. Good job. All right, question 4. Do you remember our New Testament story this week about the woman at the well who met Jesus? It is a powerful story, so if you haven't listened, be sure and do that today. It should be the episode right before this one. But in this story, Jesus asked the woman for something. Do you remember what he asked her for? Is it A, a drink of water, B, a cup he could take with him, C, any food she had on her, or D, some money? Do you remember? Well, he met this woman at a well, but do you know what a well is? It's where people go to get water. So Jesus asked her for a drink of water, which is option A. And then Jesus goes on to explain living water, which would quench thirst forever, symbolizing eternal life and fulfillment found in believing and following God through Jesus. This living water was not just physical water, but a metaphor for the spiritual nourishment and salvation that comes through Jesus. All right, last question. One of the points Jesus makes to the woman at the well is that we don't just have to worship God in specific places like temples, or for us presently in church buildings, but we can worship God anywhere. But we should worship Him in what? A, worship Him in happiness and sadness. B, worship Him in spirit and in truth. C, worship Him in hot weather or cold weather. Or D, worship Him in rain and snow. I mean, of course, we can worship God in any of those scenarios, but for this question specifically, we're talking about option B, worshiping God in spirit and in truth, which simply means we want our worship to come from within and to be motivated by our love for God. And we also want to worship God in truth, meaning worshiping the God of the Bible for who the Bible tells us God is. And that's actually one of the reasons we do this podcast for you. Our hope is that it's a supplemental resource for you in your daily devotion and worship time that can help instill more truth about who God is according to the Bible. Well, how did you do on today's quiz? It was a little shorter this week, but that's okay. Did you get them all right? Were some a little tricky? Well, we always are so thankful that you listen to this podcast, and we encourage you to make sure you're listening to all the episodes each week. Remember, if you'd like for us to shout out your birthday, or if you'd like a joke featured in a future episode, have your parents send us your info and an audio recording of a joke or riddle to info@biblicallycentered.com. All right, hope you guys have a great day. Until next time.